You're just like your mother. Worthless, ungrateful, and a complete disappointment. The words echoed through the marble hallway of the penthouse as Sofia paused mid-step, her cleaning cart frozen in place. She had worked for the Ashford family for 12 years, and in all that time, she had never heard Richard Ashford's voice crack with such venom. Through the gap in the study door she could see him, the billionaire real estate mogul who owned half of Manhattan's skyline, standing over his daughter Emma, a young woman of barely 23, trembling, but refusing to cry. "Dad, please, I just need you to listen. Listen, listen." Richard's hand slammed against the mahogany desk. "You've been listening to those liberal professors filling your head with nonsense about giving back and helping people. I didn't build this empire so you could throw it away on charity cases." Sofia's weathered hands gripped the handle of her cart tighter. At 68 years old, she had cleaned enough wealthy homes to recognize the pattern. The same script, different actors. But something about this moment felt different. Dangerous. Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I'm not asking for your permission. Grandma left me that trust fund and I'm using it to build the community center whether you—" The sound of glass shattering made Sofia flinch. Richard had swept everything off his desk in one violent motion. "Over my dead body," he hissed. "You want to know what happens to disobedient children in this family? Ask your mother. Oh wait, you can't, because I made sure she left with nothing." Sofia had heard enough. She started to back away quietly, but her cart's wheel squeaked. Just once, but loud enough. Richard's head snapped toward the door. "Who's out there?" "My name is Sofia Martinez, and I've spent my entire life being invisible. I raised 3 children alone after my husband died in a construction accident. I worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night, cleaning houses during the day, just to keep them fed. My hands are scarred from chemical burns and my back aches every morning, but I never complained. Invisible people don't complain. But that morning, standing in that hallway while a powerful man threatened his own daughter, I realized something. Being invisible means you see everything. And I had seen too much." "Just me, Mr. Ashford," I said softly, pushing my cart forward as if I'd heard nothing. Finishing the hallway. He studied me for a long moment, his eyes cold and calculating. Then something shifted in his expression, a decision being made. "Actually, Sofia, come in here, I need a witness." My stomach dropped. In 12 years, he had never asked me into his private study, never asked my opinion, never even looked at me long enough to remember my name, except now suddenly he knew it perfectly. I stepped inside, and Emma's red-rimmed eyes met mine with a silent plea I couldn't yet understand. Richard pulled out a document from his drawer, his hand steady now, all rage replaced by something far more sinister. Calm control. "Sofia, you've been loyal to this family for years. I'm going to ask you to do something, and I'll make it worth your while." He slid a check across the desk. My eyes caught the amount, $50,000. More money than I'd made in 2 years. "Emma here is going through a phase, making poor decisions. I need you to sign this statement confirming that you've witnessed her erratic behavior, her substance abuse, her mental instability." The room tilted. Emma gasped. "Dad, what are you—" "It's just a precaution, sweetheart," Richard said, his voice suddenly saccharine. "To protect you from yourself. With this statement and a few doctors' signatures I've already arranged, I can have you placed under a temporary conservatorship. For your own good, of course." His eyes locked onto mine. "All you have to do is sign, Sofia. Confirm what you've seen over the past few months, $50,000 cash. Today." I looked at the check. I looked at Emma, whose face had gone pale with betrayal and fear. I looked at Richard Ashford, whose smile didn't reach his eyes. And in that moment I made a decision that would change everything. But what these people in their towers of glass and marble didn't know was that invisible people notice things. We remember things, and sometimes we've been preparing for moments like this longer than anyone could imagine. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the pen, not from fear, but from something else entirely. something that had been building quietly inside me for 12 long years. "Mr. Ashford," I said softly, my accent thicker than usual, playing the role he expected. "Before I sign, I need to understand something first." His smile widened, mistaking my hesitation for negotiation. He had no idea what was really happening. If you're enjoying this story of hidden strength and unexpected justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next will prove that the most powerful weapon isn't money or status, but the truth that people think no one else is watching. I set the pen down gently, watching Richard's confident expression falter for just a fraction of a second. "I need to understand," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "What exactly you want me to say I saw?" Richard leaned back in his leather chair, relief washing over his features. He thought I was negotiating my price. How predictable. "Simple things, Sofia. You've seen Emma coming home at odd hours. Empty wine bottles in her room, mood swings, crying episodes." He waved his hand dismissively. "Just confirm what any troubled young woman might go through." "Dad, this is insane," Emma started, but Richard cut her off with a look that could freeze water. "Emma, adults are talking. Sofia understands how the real world works. Don't you, Sofia?" I nodded slowly, letting him believe I was the simple cleaning woman he'd always assumed I was. But my mind was racing through 12 years of observations, filing away every detail of this conversation like evidence in a case I hadn't known I was building. "How long?" I asked carefully. "Would this conservatorship last?" Richard's smile grew wider. He was enjoying this. "As long as necessary, until Emma learns to appreciate the opportunities she's been given, until she understands that family money isn't meant to be wasted on," he sneered, "community centers in the Bronx." What he didn't know was that my youngest daughter lived in that same Bronx neighborhood, the one where kids had nowhere safe to go after school. Where Emma had been volunteering every weekend for the past 6 months, something I'd known because I'd seen the mud on her shoes, the paint under her fingernails, the light in her eyes that only comes from doing something that matters. "Mr. Ashford," I said, picking up the paper to read it more carefully. "This says Emma has been consistently intoxicated in my presence, but I clean her room every Tuesday and Thursday. I've never seen alcohol." His jaw tightened. "You must have missed it. It also says she's been verbally abusive to staff." I looked up, my voice still soft but pointed. "In 12 years, has Emma ever been rude to me? Even once?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Emma was staring at me with something between hope and disbelief. Richard stood up abruptly, his patience wearing thin. "Sofia, I'm offering you more money than you'll see in years. Are you really going to throw that away over technicalities?" "I'm not throwing anything away, Mr. Ashford. I'm just trying to understand what kind of man asks a cleaning lady to destroy his own daughter's life." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Richard's face transformed, the mask of civility cracking to reveal something ugly underneath. "You forget your place, old woman. You're hired help. Replaceable. You think anyone cares what you saw or didn't see?" He stepped closer, and I could smell the expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask the scent of desperation. "Let me be clear. You have 2 choices. Sign this paper, take the money, and continue your comfortable little job here. Or refuse, get fired immediately, and I'll make sure no family in this city ever hires you again. I have that power. Do you understand?" I understood perfectly. I'd spent my whole life watching powerful men threaten people who couldn't fight back. I'd cleaned the offices where deals were made that crushed small businesses. I'd overheard phone calls that ruined careers. I'd wiped down desks where documents were signed that destroyed families. But Richard Ashford had made one critical mistake. He assumed that because I was old, poor, and foreign, I was also stupid. "I understand," I said quietly, setting the paper down. "I understand everything now." "Good." He pushed the check closer. "Then sign." "No." The word dropped like a stone in still water. Richard's face went from pink to red, to an alarming shade of purple. "What did you just say to me?" Emma moved closer to me and I could feel her trembling. "Sofia, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," I said, meeting Richard's furious gaze. "Because someone needs to." Richard grabbed his phone. "You're fired. Security will escort you out. You'll have 10 minutes to collect your things." "That's fine," I replied, already turning my cleaning cart toward the door. 10 minutes is all I need. As I pushed my cart into the hallway, I heard Richard snap at Emma. "This changes nothing. I'll find someone else who isn't foolish enough to throw away $50,000 for principles." But he was wrong. It changed everything. Because what Richard Ashford didn't know, what nobody in that penthouse knew, was that my daughter Carmen was a paralegal at the city's largest civil rights firm. My son Miguel was a journalist who'd won awards for investigative reporting. And my youngest, Teresa, was a social worker who'd been documenting abuses in the conservatorship system for years. Being invisible my whole life had taught me one valuable lesson. The most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody bothers to notice. As I rode the service elevator down, my hands finally stopped shaking. Not from fear, but from something else. Something that felt like the beginning of a storm Richard Ashford never saw coming. I pulled out my phone, the same phone Richard probably assumed I barely knew how to use, and opened the voice recording app. Recording stopped. 18 minutes, 42 seconds. Every word, every threat, every detail of his plan to fraudulently imprison his own daughter. My reflection in the elevator's metal door showed a 68-year-old cleaning woman in a worn uniform. But for the first time in years, I saw someone else looking back at me. Someone who was tired of being invisible. Someone who'd just declared war on a billionaire. And the most beautiful part? He had no idea it had even started. 3 days after my firing, I sat in my small apartment in Queens, surrounded by my children and Emma Ashford, who had shown up at my door with a suitcase and desperation in her eyes. "He froze all my accounts," Emma said, her voice hollow. "Every credit card, every bank account. Even the trust fund from my grandmother. He got a judge to issue a temporary hold pending a mental health evaluation." Carmen, my daughter, looked up from her laptop, her expression grim. "He moved fast, filed emergency petitions in 3 different courts. He's got doctors lined up ready to testify about your concerning behavior." "Doctors who've never even met me," Emma added bitterly. Miguel was pacing, his journalist instincts fully activated. "Mom's recording is good, but we need more. His lawyers will claim it was taken illegally, argue it's inadmissible." "It wasn't illegal," Teresa interjected. "New York is a one-party consent state. Mom was part of that conversation." "Doesn't matter if they bury us in motions before we ever get to court," Carmen countered. "Richard Ashford has 5 law firms on retainer. We're 1 paralegal, 1 reporter, and a social worker." I hadn't spoken yet, just listened to my children strategize. They'd inherited my patience, my ability to observe before acting, but they'd also inherited something else, my stubbornness. "There's something you need to know," I said quietly. Everyone stopped talking. I didn't just work in the penthouse. For 12 years, I had access to everything. I pulled out a worn notebook from my bag, the kind wealthy people never notice because it looks like a cleaning checklist. Inside were pages of neat handwriting, dates, times, observations. October 2022, overheard Richard on phone discussing creative accounting for the Atlantic Towers project. March 2023, found documents in study trash about shell companies in the Cayman Islands. June 2024, witnessed meeting where Richard told his CFO to make the safety violations disappear from the construction report. Emma's eyes widened. "You wrote down everything?" "Not everything," I admitted. "Just the things that seemed wrong. I never knew what to do with it. I was just a cleaning lady. Who would believe me?" Miguel grabbed the notebook, flipping through pages with growing excitement. "Mom, this is incredible. These dates match up with projects I've been investigating, but I could never get close enough to find proof." "The invisible people see everything," I said softly. Carmen was already typing furiously. If even half of this checks out, we're not just defending Emma anymore. We're talking fraud, safety violations, possible manslaughter charges if anyone died in those buildings he cut corners on. 2 workers, I said. 2 workers died at Atlantic Towers. Their families settled quietly. Richard paid them just enough to make them go away. The room fell silent. Teresa spoke first, her voice shaking. Mom, if you come forward with this, he'll come after you with everything he has. This isn't just about a conservatorship anymore. This is his entire empire. I know. He'll say you stole documents, that you're a disgruntled employee making things up. I know. Mom, Miguel said gently. Are you sure? I looked at Emma, this young woman who'd risked everything to help people like my neighbors in the Bronx. Then I looked at my children, who'd grown up watching me scrub floors and clean toilets so they could have better lives. Your father died because a developer cut corners on safety equipment, I said. The same kind of corners Richard Ashford cuts. So yes, I'm sure. Emma wiped tears from her face. Sofia, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you what's going to happen. I stood up, my old bones creaking but my voice steady. Richard Ashford thinks he destroyed me by taking away a job. He has no idea what he actually did. What did he do? Carmen asked. I smiled for the first time in days. He freed me. For 12 years I stayed quiet because I needed that paycheck. But now I have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Miguel closed my notebook carefully. Then we need to move fast. He's scheduled Emma's evaluation for Monday. That's 4 days. 4 days to take down a billionaire, Teresa said. That's impossible. No, I corrected her. 4 days to show the truth. The truth takes down itself. But I knew something my children didn't yet understand. We weren't going to fight Richard Ashford with his own weapons, expensive lawyers, bought judges, and powerful connections. We were going to fight him with something he'd never valued, and therefore never protected against. The testimony of all the invisible people he'd stepped on to build his empire. And I knew exactly where to find them. By Friday morning, my small apartment had transformed into a war room. Miguel had connected us with his editor at the Times. Carmen had reached out to her firm's senior partners, carefully, quietly, feeling out who might take a case this explosive. Teresa was working her network of social workers and community organizers. But I was doing something different. I was making phone calls to people Richard Ashford had forgotten existed. Mrs. Chen, this is Sofia Martinez. We met at the Ashford building 7 years ago. You cleaned the offices on the 12th floor. One by one, I reached out to every cleaning person, maintenance worker, security guard, and driver who'd ever worked for Richard Ashford's companies. People like me, invisible people. And one by one, they started sharing their stories. Marcus, the night security guard, remembered the evening Richard ordered him to delete security footage showing a construction site accident. Told me it was to protect the company from frivolous lawsuits. I always wondered about that. Linda, who'd cleaned Richard's downtown office for 8 years, recalled finding hidden ledgers in a locked drawer she'd accidentally opened. Numbers that didn't match the official books. I didn't understand them, but I knew they looked wrong. James, Richard's former driver, had recordings on his dash cam. He thought I couldn't hear him through the partition. But I heard everything, every dirty deal, every threat, every bribe. By Saturday afternoon, we had 17 witnesses, 17 invisible people who'd been watching, listening, and remembering. Emma sat in my kitchen, overwhelmed. How did you find all these people? We find each other, I explained. When you're invisible, you learn to see others who are invisible too. We talk, we remember, we protect each other. Miguel walked in with his laptop, excitement radiating from him. Mom, you're not going to believe this. I cross-referenced your notebook with public records. 3 of Richard's buildings failed safety inspections that mysteriously disappeared from official files. 2 more had construction violations that were never reported. Can you prove he made them disappear? Carmen asked. Not yet. But with the testimonies Mom's gathering, we can establish a pattern. and patterns get prosecutors interested. Teresa hung up her phone, her expression serious. I contacted the families of those 2 workers who died at Atlantic Towers. They're willing to talk. They said the settlement agreements had non-disclosure clauses, but they're tired of staying silent. Emma's evaluation was scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m. Richard had arranged for a private psychiatrist, one he'd personally selected and, according to Carmen's research, one who testified in 4 other conservatorship cases for wealthy families with difficult children. We had 36 hours. It's not enough time, Carmen said, voicing what we were all thinking. Even if we had enough for a criminal investigation, those take months to develop. We need something immediate to stop Monday's evaluation. I stood up, my decision made. Then we go public. What? Miguel looked startled. Your newspaper. Can they run a story by Sunday evening? Mom, if we publish too early, Richard's lawyers will bury it in injunctions and defamation suits before. Let them try, I interrupted. But they can't injunction 17 people telling the truth. They can't silence families who want justice for their dead sons and brothers. And they can't make the court ignore questions about a man's character when he's trying to take away his daughter's freedom. Emma grabbed my hand. Sofia, if this backfires, he'll destroy all of you. He'll try, I agreed. But here's what Richard Ashford never understood. You can't destroy people who have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. If you're wondering how a cleaning lady and her family could possibly stand up to a billionaire's empire, don't go anywhere, because sometimes the most powerful movements start in the quietest places, and you're about to see exactly how loud and visible people can be when they finally decide to speak. Miguel opened a new document on his laptop. All right, then we write the story of his life, the real one. Carmen pulled out her phone. I'll contact every journalist who's ever tried to investigate Ashford. Give them our sources. Teresa nodded. And I'll organize a press conference. The families, the workers, everyone together. I looked at my children, pride swelling in my chest. This was why I'd scrubbed floors and cleaned toilets for decades, not just to feed them, but to raise them into people who believed the world could be better. There's one more thing, I said quietly. I need to go back to the penthouse. Everyone stared at me. Mom, you can't. He'll have you arrested for trespassing, Miguel protested. Not if I'm invited, I replied, pulling out my phone to show them a text message. It was from Richard Ashford's new head of household. Sofia, Mr. Ashford wants to speak with you. He's reconsidering his decision. Can you come Monday morning? Emma's face went pale. It's a trap. He knows you're helping me. Maybe, I admitted. Or maybe he thinks he can still intimidate me into silence. Either way, I'm going. Why? Carmen asked. I smiled, and this time it reached my eyes. Because invisible people can go anywhere, and there's one more piece of evidence I need. Monday morning, 7 a.m. I stood in front of the Ashford building wearing my old cleaning uniform, my heart steady despite everything at stake. The lobby security guard, Marcus, one of the 17, gave me a subtle nod as I signed in. Good luck, Mrs. Martinez. I rode the elevator up to the penthouse, my phone recording in my pocket just like before. But this time I wasn't alone. Miguel was parked outside in a van with his editor. Carmen was at the courthouse with emergency motions. Teresa was with Emma and the families, ready for the press conference scheduled for noon. Richard was waiting in his study looking remarkably calm. Too calm. Sofia, please sit. He gestured to a chair with exaggerated politeness. I believe we got off on the wrong foot. Did we? I remained standing. He sighed, like a parent dealing with a difficult child. I was harsh, stressed. You understand? Family matters can be complicated. I'd like to offer you your job back, double salary, and that $50,000 as an apology. An apology for trying to imprison your daughter? His mask slipped for just a second. Emma is confused. The conservatorship is for her protection. Surely you can see that now. She's been living with you. Has she seemed stable? So he'd been watching, tracking Emma's location, probably had someone following her. She seems like a young woman trying to do good in the world, I replied. Something you wouldn't understand. Richard's jaw tightened. Careful, Sofia. I'm offering you a way out of the very public humiliation you're about to face. What humiliation? He pulled out a folder, spreading photos across his desk. Pictures of me entering Carmen's law office, Miguel's newspaper building, meeting with the other workers. You think I didn't know what you've been planning? You think I don't have eyes everywhere? He leaned forward. I know about your little notebook, your witnesses, the families you've contacted, and I've already dealt with it. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Dealt with it how? Marcus signed a statement saying you fabricated everything, threatened his job if he didn't support your lies. Linda took a generous severance package and moved to Florida, unreachable. James's dashcam footage, a technical malfunction corrupted all the files. His smile was predatory. As for those families, they signed NDAs. Breaking them means financial ruin. They won't risk it. I felt the ground shifting under me. He'd anticipated everything, moved faster than we could. Your son's article? My lawyers have already filed injunctions. It won't publish. Your daughter's emergency motions? The judge is a personal friend. They'll be denied. And Emma's evaluation starts in 2 hours with a psychiatrist who will say exactly what I need him to say. Richard stood, buttoning his suit jacket. So here's what happens now. You sign a statement saying you made everything up out of spite for being fired. You convince Emma to accept the conservatorship voluntarily. And maybe I don't press charges for defamation, harassment, and attempted extortion. And if I refuse, then I destroy you. Your children lose their jobs. I'll make sure of it. Your daughter's law firm won't touch her after I'm done. Your son will never work in journalism again. And you'll spend whatever time you have left fighting lawsuits you can't afford. The room spun. He'd won. He'd systematically dismantled everything we'd built in just 3 days. But then I noticed something. Richard kept glancing at his watch. His confidence was real, but there was something underneath it. Something nervous. You're wondering why I really came back, I said softly. To beg, presumably. No. To record this conversation, just like I recorded the first one. I pulled out my phone, showing the active recording. Every threat, every admission of bribing judges and intimidating witnesses, every word. His face went white, then red. He lunged for my phone, but I was faster than he expected, stepping back toward the door. You can't use that, it's illegal. One-party consent state. Your lawyer should have reminded you. It doesn't matter, he shouted. I already stopped everything else. One recording won't what? Won't be enough when combined with the live press conference happening right now? I turned my phone screen toward him. The recording app was open, yes, but underneath it, a live video stream was playing. Emma stood at a podium surrounded by cameras, microphones, and reporters. Behind her were the families of the dead workers. Beside her were Teresa and a dozen community members from the Bronx. My name is Emma Ashford. Her voice came through my phone speaker, clear and strong. And my father is trying to imprison me for wanting to help people. Richard stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. You were right about one thing, I told him. You do have eyes everywhere, but you forgot that invisible people can disappear when they need to. Marcus didn't betray us. He fed you false information about our timeline. Linda didn't move to Florida. She's at that press conference. And James's dashcam footage wasn't corrupted. We made copies weeks ago. The video continued. Miguel appeared on screen presenting documents. Carmen explained the legal violations. One by one, the witnesses Richard thought he'd silenced began to speak. You see, Mr. Ashford, you made one critical mistake, I said. You assumed that because we were poor, we were stupid. You assumed that because we were invisible, we were powerless. Richard collapsed into his chair, watching his empire crumble in real time on a phone screen. The article publishes in 10 minutes. The criminal referrals go to the DA's office at noon. And Emma's conservatorship hearing? It's been moved to a different judge, one you don't own. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and the $50,000 you offered? Donate it to Emma's community center. Consider it your first payment toward redemption. His voice came out as a whisper. How did you? I told you. Invisible people see everything. We just waited until you stopped looking. 6 months later, I stood in the bright, newly painted community center in the Bronx, watching children pour through the doors after school. The walls were covered with their artwork. The gymnasium echoed with laughter. The computer lab hummed with possibility. Emma walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. Mrs. Martinez, Sofia, you have to see this. She showed me her phone, a news headline. Former billionaire Richard Ashford sentenced to 8 years for fraud safety violations. I nodded quietly. The justice system had worked slowly, but it had worked. The investigation my notebook sparked had uncovered decades of corruption. 3 of Richard's business partners had also been indicted. The families of the dead workers received proper compensation finally. He lost everything, Emma said softly. The company, the buildings, the reputation. Was it worth it? That's not for me to answer, I replied. You should ask the families who finally got justice, or the workers who don't have to fear unsafe conditions anymore, or these kids who now have somewhere safe to go. Emma smiled, tears in her eyes. My grandmother would have loved this place. She would have loved you, I corrected, for having the courage to fight for it. The center had been built with the trust fund money, supplemented by donations that poured in after Emma's story went viral. My children had helped too. Miguel's articles won a journalism award. Carmen made partner at her firm specializing in workers' rights, and Teresa expanded her advocacy work nationwide. As for me, I officially retired from cleaning houses, though I still volunteered at the community center 3 days a week, teaching ESL classes to new immigrants who reminded me of myself 40 years ago. Do you ever regret it? Emma asked. You could have taken that $50,000 and walked away. I watched a little girl who looked like my granddaughter playing basketball, her laughter echoing through the gym. Regret standing up to a bully? Regret showing my children that doing the right thing matters more than money? Never. Marcus, the security guard, now worked as the center's head of security. Linda returned from her fake Florida trip and managed the facility. James drove the center's new van, taking kids on field trips. We'd all found our place in this new chapter. Emma's phone buzzed. She read the message and her expression shifted. It's from my father, from prison. He wants to see me. Will you go? She was quiet for a long moment. Maybe, someday. Not for him, for me. To show him that his attempt to control me only freed me to become who I was meant to be. I squeezed her hand. That's the real victory. Not his downfall, but your rise. Later that evening, I sat in my small apartment in Queens, surrounded by my children and grandchildren. Miguel was editing his new book about corporate corruption. Carmen was preparing for a major labor rights case. Teresa showed us photos of new community centers being built in 3 other cities, inspired by Emma's model. Mom, Miguel said, they want to interview you for the documentary. Tell your story. I shook my head. This was never about my story. It was about all of us, every person who's been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel invisible. But you started it, Carmen insisted. No, I corrected. I just stopped staying silent. There's a difference. As my family laughed and talked around me, I thought about Richard Ashford in his prison cell. I didn't hate him. I almost pitied him. He'd spent his whole life building towers of steel and glass, never understanding that real power doesn't come from what you build above others. It comes from what you build with them. He'd thought invisible people were powerless. But he'd never stopped to consider that invisibility isn't weakness, it's perspective. We see everything because no one thinks to hide from us. We hear everything because no one remembers we're listening. And when we finally speak, the truth we carry has the weight of decades behind it. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so beautiful from the ashes of their cruelty that even they can see what they could have been if they'd chosen differently. Emma sent me a photo later that night, a plaque being installed at the community center's entrance. It read, "Dedicated to Sofia Martinez and all the invisible people who see everything, remember everything, and have the courage to speak truth to power." I saved the photo but didn't share it. Some recognition matters more when it stays quiet, when you know you made a difference not for the applause but because it was right. My husband used to say, "The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire." He died in an accident caused by someone cutting corners, someone like Richard Ashford. But his words lived on in me, in our children, in every person we helped find their voice. Richard Ashford tried to silence one young woman and intimidate one old cleaning lady. Instead, he sparked a movement that exposed an entire system of corruption and gave hope to thousands of people who thought no one was listening to their struggles. If you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or powerless, remember this story. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And sometimes the quietest people create the loudest change. Subscribe to hear more stories that prove justice doesn't require money or status, just courage and a refusal to accept that wrong is right simply because powerful people say so. At 68 years old with scarred hands and an aching back, I learned that I was never invisible. I was just waiting for the right moment to be seen. And when that moment came, I made it count.